What is the book of Revelation all about, and where is it all headed? What's the point of the images and the symbols throughout the book, and do we take any of it, some of it, literally? And why is it significant, particularly for Christian doctrine and ministry, that the canon ends with this vision of the new heavens and the new earth? To think about this and more today, our guest is Dr. Tom Schreiner. Dr. Schreiner is one of the world's preeminent New Testament scholars, having published commentaries on Luke, Romans, Ephesians, Hebrews, and Revelation, to name only a few. He's also authored a New Testament theology and a full biblical theology. We're particularly keen to talk to Dr. Schreiner today because of his commentary on Revelation in the Baker Exegetical Commentary series, published only 2 years ago. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Schreiner.
Thank you, Nick and Roger. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. As I mentioned, we're thinking about a biblical theology of creation this season on World Upside Down. And we've come now to the end of the canon to see how it closes and to think with you together about why a biblical theology of creation matters, why there even is a biblical theology of creation. Why is the Bible so concerned with creation? So why don't we start with this one? In Revelation 21 and 22, John employs a lot of language and images from creation, invoking Genesis 1 and 2. What are some of the particular details of creation that an astute reader should observe there?
Yeah, well, I think I would say it's especially in terms of new creation, right? I mean, I think John is picking up Genesis 1 and 2, but also Isaiah 65, Isaiah 66, what God is doing in the eschaton replicates, but elevates what we see in the original creation. So, I mean, there's so many different images we could look at. There's the tree of life, right? You see that in chapter 22. The tree of life is for the healing of the nations. And again, we're immediately faced with the issue, how do we interpret something like that? I mean, I'm a detailed person, and when I see that, I say, do we need healing in the new creation? Well, absolutely not, right? That image of healing is just a way of saying life in the new creation is perfect. We could say, and I'm sure you've done episodes on this, we could say, the original creation, Adam and Eve in the garden, it's what we have there in Genesis 2 is a temple sanctuary, right? Where Adam and Eve reside, and we see that new creation theme in Revelation 21 and 22 as well. The whole world, Greg Beale has written on this, of course, the whole world is God's temple. God resides with his people. A very good book on this, by the way, is Ryan Lister's Presence of God, to trace that all through the canon. And of course, that's what Adam and Eve enjoyed in the garden. God walked with them in the garden. They had fellowship with them in the garden. So the consummation, and it's very much like the garden, the consummation is we will see his face. We will have fellowship with God. He will abide with us. So it's not, we always have to remind ourselves, it's not merely that it's a new creation, and it is, but it's fundamentally God's presence with us. That's the beauty and joy of the new creation that we enjoy in Jesus Christ. Since I'm talking about books, another good book in this regard is by William Dumbrell, right? What's the title of that book? Something like the end and the beginning.
End of the beginning. The end of the beginning. What a great title.
Yeah. So, linking the chapters in Revelation to what we see in Genesis. Another theme I think we see, right? Adam and Eve in the original creation were to rule the world under God's lordship. And I think what we see in Revelation 21 and 22, that rule is restored, but not only restored, but elevated, right? Because Adam and Eve, right, there was the possibility that they could sin, and now there's no possibility for sin. It's the new creation that will never be defiled or removed. So we don't really know what that looks like. I think we're not told what that looks like because we can't conceive of what that would look like in the present era of redemptive history. But we're told it will be so, right? That we are priests and kings, so that we will rule and we will conquer. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe you want to ask something more specific.
Yeah, we will. But we are told what it will not look like, right? So there will be no more tears, no more death, no more mourning, no more crying, no more pain. Those are described in 21:4 as the former things that have passed away.
And of course, and I know you'd agree with this, Nick and Roger. Of course, in the original creation, I'm just talking about Genesis 1 and 2 now, before the fall. Those things weren't present, but there was the potential for them to be present, right? And now that's erased. There's not even the potential anymore. That will not be. That possibility for the redeemed is over forever and ever. As the theologians say, we're now confirmed in righteousness. So the new creation is, I keep using this word, an elevation over the original creation. But yeah, what glorious truths those are. We're talking here and we're very comfortable, but the tears of the present world they're agonizing.
How do you see, one of the clear features of first creation is Imago Dei. How do we see the enhancement and the elevation of that theme in Revelation 21-22 from Genesis 1?
Yeah. Well, if we look at the biblical storyline, right, I believe after the fall, the image of God is not removed. We see this in James 3, even Genesis 5. Human beings remain in the image of God. I think most would say the image of God is marred, right? But if we pick up, I mean, I'm not just thinking of Revelation here. If we pick up Colossians 3, we're renewed in the image of the knowledge of God. So I would take it, right? Even fallen human beings remain in the image of God. But what does Paul say? And I think it fits very nicely with Revelation. We're renewed in the image of God as we're redeemed, and then as we're sanctified. And then what we see in the new creation is that's perfected. So I'm picking up other images besides Revelation, but First John, who I think is the same writer, the Apostle John, I take the Apostle John to be the author of Revelation, which just incidentally is interesting. Even how many evangelicals don't want to commit on that is striking to me, but I don't think it's a matter of orthodoxy. But I digress. First John 3, when we see him, we'll be like him because we'll see him as he is. So I would see the image of God, again, perfected. Where's the elevation? It's perfected in the new creation. And then the rule, I think the image of God includes the rule that we'll have over the universe. And again, we're not told what that will be like, but certainly it's elevated over what we experience now. We see even now through fallen humanity, human beings rule over this world, but it's quite inadequate, even for Christians, right? Given the already not yet. And at least when I think about this, I think, what will it be like? I mean, what will we be doing? What are the specifics? And I think even I'm talking more about First John than Revelation, but I think he says we shall know then more what it's like. Revelation promises us there will be that rule. We will be priests and kings, but it's not very specific about what that will look like. If we pick up what Paul says, we'll rule over angels as well.
Well, when you talk about the elevation, the elevation of the new creation, obviously it's elevated in meaningful ways above our experience right now in the creation. But you also mean, don't you, elevated even over Adam and Eve's experience? So this is not just a return to Eden, but a entrance into a new Eden. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Adam and Eve, the world was good, and there wasn't evil in the world per se, right? But and yet, I mean, it's there's the serpent, right? Satan, he's fallen, and there's the potential for evil, and that potential is erased in the new creation now. Or then, I should say, the world is perfected, and
is that one of the defining attributes of that elevation?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, what does he say in Revelation? Is it 21:5? I make all things new, and I think that newness is the perfection of the new creation. It's very interesting. I mean, how he describes it, because he describes a perfect people. He says, I'm gonna show you the people, and then he describes a city, right?
Right.
Which is very fascinating, and at least I take it to be, it's a perfect people and the city, which is the temple, which is the universe. I think they're all the same thing. It's a perfect people, and it's a perfect world. So, which is another interesting dimension. If you look at creation, they're in a garden, but now it's pictured as a city. A fascinating change of images.
Yeah, an arboreal city.
An expanded arboreal city.
Why expanded?
Well, expanded. It's
it's larger than Eden was.
Yes, and filling the whole earth.
Yeah. With the river running through it. I mean, that's something that's in the new creation, right? The 4 rivers. But here we see the river proceeding from the throne, and of course we see antecedents to that in Zechariah and Joel and especially Ezekiel, that fascinating stream coming out in Ezekiel that starts with no tributaries, right? But starts out very low, and then it gets fuller and fuller, which I mean, we haven't talked about this, but I don't take those as literal images. I think they're pictures of, I mean, what is it going to look like? I don't even know. I don't think the writer intended us to think literally, because I don't think the text tells us there's no temple in the new creation. So. Right.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So John communicates in symbols. So the first verses of the book itself.
Yeah, he signified, right?
Yeah, God. So the revelation of Jesus Christ, this is 1:1, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon place take, and he signified or communicated with symbols by sending his angel, and so on and so forth. So why use symbols like this, or what is the effect? If it's not literal and we don't know what it will look like, nonetheless, we have all this visual description. What's the upshot then of recognizing the symbolic nature as opposed to some kind of literal reading of these last couple chapters?
Let me begin by saying just an experience I had. So I didn't come from an evangelical family. So I was converted when I was 17. I'd never read the Bible. So I read the New Testament for the first time, and I read the book of Revelation. I mean, I've never heard of apocalyptic literature. But I immediately recognized, intuitively, I think, reading the book, wait, first of all, I don't understand everything here, but there's something otherworldly about this book that I think I intuitively recognize. There's something symbolic. There's something about this book that captures my imagination. And that's how I would express it. The apocalyptic genre, which for me, apocalyptic means fundamentally symbolic. That apocalyptic genre, it appeals to our imagination and in a way that an epistle doesn't, which is more discursive, or a narrative, which is a story. So we want to pay attention to the genre, and I'd say in appealing to our imagination, that doesn't mean it's not real, right? There are symbols, but there are referents to the symbols. Sometimes it's hard to know in some passages what is the referent, but and then I want to back up and say, when we talk about the symbolic nature of it, I think it appeals to our imagination. It actually feeds our soul even through the genre that's used. But I also want to say, because there are many people out there, as you know, both of you know, that they get nervous about the word symbolic. They want to say we should interpret this book literally, right? Well, first of all, what does the word literal mean? But we can go there if you want to. But the second thing I want to say is everybody thinks this book is symbolic. Everybody. There's no exceptions. Nobody thinks the beast in Revelation 13 is literally a beast, literally an animal. Everybody recognizes it's an image. So then the interpretive question is, and it's not always easy, we all acknowledge that, we have symbolic language, what's the referent? Or sometimes we might say, or is there a referent, right?
Well, because the referent is what's true, right?
Right.
It's the referent that the symbol wants to communicate to the audience. In your commentary, you comment often. Yeah, go ahead. Finish that thought.
Well, the dragon. Satan, the dragon is an image. It's a picture, right? But there really is a devil. There really is a referent, right? The dragon refers to the devil, but the devil's not literally a dragon, right? He's not. What is he saying? He's a monster. He's the
ferocious and terrible,
and he's the monster of all your nightmares. Here he is. He's the great enemy of God's people. And again, nobody thinks Satan's really a dragon. It's help. I like to say that to say, look, we have a lot of common ground in interpreting this book. And I think it helps people realize, because I was trained by dispensationalists and I loved my training there, and they taught me so much, and I loved them, and they loved the Bible. But there was a little bit of an sense of maybe if you're interpreting it symbolically, you're trying to get away from the Bible and the truth of the Bible. You're trying to play fast and loose with the Bible because maybe you don't like what the Bible's saying. But I'm saying, no, we're interpreting this book according to what authorial conventions that John expected his readers to understand. And that
starts with recognizing the genre.
And they did understand it because, as you guys know, there are other apocalyptic books out there. You know, you could read First Enoch and Fourth Ezra, and even Zechariah 9 through 14, and some of Ezekiel. And so, I think this would be understandable in the main to the original readers. I mean, I was struck very early, it's displaying my background. I remember reading Hal Lindsey, and Hal Lindsey said something like in one of his books, only we understand Revelation. The original readers wouldn't have got it. We get it because we're living in the time of fulfillment. And I think that's exactly backwards, right?
Exactly.
To concretize it a little bit for the modern reader, I'm a pastor. This is my normal job as a pastor, not a seminary professor. Somebody reads Revelation 21 and says, I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Are we to anticipate that there's a concrete reality that we actually may behold at one time, and that the symbolism is more than that, but not less than a concrete reality? Is that where? So that is there a city that we will lay our eyes upon in our experience that's referred to in Revelation 21? Do you think?
Well, if I'm understanding you, I would say yes, but it depends on what you mean. The city is the new heaven and the new earth. It's not like New York City or San Francisco. Yes, it's a city, but it's the whole universe. So I don't think we'll literally see it floating down from heaven coming to earth, because I believe, reading Revelation and the whole canon, I believe the city is the transformation of this present universe. So, right, the early fathers, this is interesting, right? Some of the early fathers believed God would annihilate, depends on how you read 2 Peter 3, he would annihilate this world and create a whole new one. But I interpret Revelation, Romans 8, even 2 Peter 3 to say this world will be transformed. So, the picture of it coming down, what does that communicate? This city is a heavenly city, or this city comes from God. But it's not a literal, we'll see it coming down, and it's a distinct entity from what we see now. That understanding, I think, is a misunderstanding. It's an over literalizing reading of what John is doing. I understand that at the end of the day, right, we can say to our brothers and sisters who believe that, well, we're all going to experience the same reality. You're conceiving of it a bit differently, and I think even mistakenly, but we share that same hope.
So the referent there is that this will be a new heaven and a new earth. That when it is the Creator God who created the heavens and the earth in the beginning, and so this new heaven and new earth will have dirt. It will have resurrected people in bodies. It will have things like time, space, and matter, right? All those created realities that God is outside of. And it's therefore tell me if you think this is a good reading. It's a rejoining of heaven and earth, right? If Eden is this place where God dwells and humanity dwells, this is why we can call it a garden temple, right? Because God meets humanity, humanity meets God in the sacred space of the temple. Eden is therefore a temple, and the fall is basically a ripping apart of heaven and earth, right? But now here we have the point is that this city comes down from heaven. That's the referent. Heaven and earth are now rejoined, and so the covenant formula can be uttered. Behold, this is the climax of the whole canon. Am I right? In 21:3, behold. Of all the things that could be said right now, this is what's said. Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them. They shall be his people, and God himself will be with them. All of that assumes the problem with the world right now is what? God doesn't dwell with us. We don't dwell with God. And there's this reuniting of heaven and earth that has to happen for life and life abundantly, and no tears, no sorcerers, no idolaters, no liars, and so on and so forth. And no serpent anymore. Is that another part of the elevation in the new creation? No serpent,
yeah,
no dragon.
Absolutely. And I think you're exactly right. Heaven and earth join, and one thing we would say, right, about it is a new creation, right? Romans 8, what Romans 8 says, and I think it's in Revelation in apocalyptic form. The earth is groaning, right? So yes, it's a new creation. There's continuity and discontinuity, even with our bodies, right? we do have, there'll be real physical bodies, but what that will look like in some specifics, we don't know. I'm not taking away at all from the physicality of our bodies, right?
Right.
But will be a new creation. And I take it, no more tsunamis, no more typhoons, no more earthquakes, all the things that bring suffering in the old creation because of human sin. I think Romans 8 is clear on that. So there's, yes, heaven and earth join, and then this world is also transformed. I think that's very important to say because, when it comes to natural evil, the natural evil, I think we'd say as Christians, well, it's due to the fall, right? It's because of human sin.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
And we would take that new heavens and new earth to be renewed and not brand new.
That's right. That's right. It's a transformation. But the transformation, it is still an elevation over Eden, right? Because at least in Eden, there's the potential, again, for defilement. And that's not going to happen in the new creation. So it says, where is that? Is it in 21:1? The sea is no more. Well, I take
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I take sea there to stand for, there are other antecedents for chaos, evil, destruction. So I actually believe there will be water. There will be seas. I don't think he's saying literally there will be no seas. There'll be no lakes or oceans. I think he's saying there'll be no evil. So again, you see the word, right? But it's actually a symbol. And the referent could be radically misunderstood. Some people look at that and think, I love the water. It's beautiful. Wow, that's not going to be a very nice new creation. But there are antecedents in Daniel, right? Even in Revelation, Satan calls up
From
the beast
sea,
out of the sea. The place of great evil at the end of the day.
I think that's the perfect illustration for a lot of what we're talking about here, because if you're right, the sea there in Revelation 21 is emblematic, symbolic of all the ways the sea is a place of death. Like, well, first of all, it has to be, the land has to be brought, the sea has to be separated from the land so that life can happen, right? Israel's trapped against the sea, and the Lord has to open up the sea, but Pharaoh dies in the sea. Jonah, of course, is thrown into the sea, and all the ways the sea is a symbol of turmoil, fallenness of the world, death, destruction, and so forth. Then to bring that imagery into Revelation 21:1, that it's the first thing that's said, new heavens and new earth, sea was no more, communicates all of that destruction and death from the Old Testament will not be there. And so that's actually more powerful than just saying there's just no large bodies of water, right?
Exactly.
If you go with the literal, you miss so much.
And that's what I'm saying again. The apocalyptic language, symbolic language, it feeds our soul and reaches us at a deeper level than merely a discursive, factual, abstract statement. Right?
Yeah, draw this picture. Yeah.
There's a picture. There's a picture. There's a poetry to it, and I think as evangelicals, we do appreciate more than we did perhaps 30, 50 years ago. The different genres of literature feed us in different ways. I'm not speaking against discursive literature. I've spent a lot of time in the Pauline epistles,
Right.
and I love them. And the arguments of those letters are so fundamental, and so that they feed our souls too. But we need everything, right?
Can I give one more example?
Of the sea?
Of that kind of imagery feeding our souls. Because I think you got a question you want to get in.
Oh, no, I was going to actually think, I was thinking like one of the hallmark signs of the presence of Yahweh in the Old Testament is he calms the sea.
Right.
Jesus calms the
Walks
sea.
on the sea,
Walks
calms
on the
the
sea,
sea.
calms
Yep.
the waves.
Yep.
The disciples worship.
Yeah.
And all those threads are being pulled in and woven together right there when there's no more sea.
Yeah. It's not there at all to be tamed anymore, or at least the forces that threaten your life, because the disciples think they're going to die. Peter thinks he's sinking, all those kinds of things.
And where the presence of God tamed it before, the very presence of God removes it now.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Another one I appreciate very much is in chapter 22. We talked a little bit about, he showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city. Also, on either side of the river, the tree of life with its 12 kinds of fruits, yielding its fruit each month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations, as you mentioned. What does it mean that the tree is on either side of the river? Is this like a giant, larger than you can imagine redwood tree that the river can actually flow through it and it's on either side? Or does that mean there are groves of the tree of life? There's not just one, there's a whole grove of the tree of life on either side of the river.
It was an elevated image of the original tree.
What John is saying here exactly, if you picture it literally, is very hard to discern. And the commentators differ on what is going on exactly there. I just want to say, at the end of the day, I think it's a mistake to try to picture this. I don't think John's wanting us to picture this as a literal picture, right? I think one of the reasons it's hard for us to understand what's going on, right, is where's the river and where are the trees? That becomes a big discussion here. But what I think, since John is writing symbolically, at least my argument would be he's not worried about that. That's not his concern. His concern is, it's actually, both images say the same thing, right? That God is nourishing his people. God is providing all our needs. There's a tree of life for us where it's always available. And there's a river that refreshes and nourishes us, and it flows from God's throne and from the Lamb. That nourishment and strength come from the Lamb. So, I just another example of this that I think is so interesting, but I've got to find it. I mean, I don't know where's the exact verses, but Verse 14, the city, there's a wall in the city, right, with 12 foundations. Right. And then we're told later, where's the exact verse, but we're told later, the gates of the wall are always open. Well, there's no use. I mean, we could say two things. There's no use having a wall to protect the city if you leave the gates open. I mean, that's foolish, right? There's but obviously, first of all, in our modern world, no cities have walls anymore because they're useless. You just bomb cities, right? That worked in the ancient world. So, and the gates are open. They're symbols. They're clearly symbols, right? They seem like contradictory symbols, maybe like here with the tree and the river, right? Or hard to put together. But John's not worried about it. Yeah. How it fits literally. He's saying this city is the safest place in the world. Right. It's got a wall around it. How safe is it? The gates are open, right? Yeah. It is. I love it where he says, where's the exact verse? Verse 5 of 22. There's no night there. Again, is that literal? Is there no evening? No, he's saying there's no evil there. It's the perfect world. I'd love to match that with the Gospel of John, because I think it is incredibly powerful when Judas goes out to betray Jesus. What does John say in John 13:30? And it was night.
And it was night.
That was nighttime,
It was
yeah.
night. And he's not making, I mean, I think it was night, but he's speaking symbolically as well. And same here. There's no night there. And man, we could just keep going. People don't need the light of the lamp or the light of the sun. But if it's a restored creation, isn't there a sun? But he doesn't say there's no sun.
So no need for the sun.
There's no need for it. That's a different thing. So
yeah, we were interviewing John Currid on Genesis chapter 1, and how is there light before there's the sun? And he argued, well, that's the Shekinah glory presence of God in the created order. Well, if that's what it means to dwell in the presence of God, then of course what you will have then in the new creation, living in his presence, is the effulgence of light. What the Israelites saw in the wilderness temporarily, just for that, well, temporarily 40 years, we will now see and live by all the time. And that's why the whole place can be a temple, because that's what happens. The Lord's glory fills the temple, the whole temple.
That's super interesting because, of course, there's another restoration theme, right? So the light of God's presence in the new creation.
The light of God's presence. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you about this one. This always intrigues me. Right there where you're talking about no temple. This is 21, 22, chapter 21, verse 22. And saw no temple in the city, for the temple is the Lord God and the Almighty, and the city has no need of sun or moon to shine upon it. More creation imagery, sun and moon, right? For day and night. For the glory of the Lord is its light, and its lamp is the Lamb. Now here we go. By its light shall the nations walk, and the kings of the earth shall bring their glory into it. And its gates shall never be shut by day, and there shall be no night there. They shall bring into it the glory and honor of the nations. How do you understand the glory and honor of the nations, the kings of the earth, and what's being brought into the city? What does that tell us about the new creation?
Well, many people,
this creation.
I'll give you two interpretations. Many people interpret that to mean by glory, we will worship, which is totally true. This is not my view of the passage, but we will bring our worship into the new creation.
Okay.
But I think what
so to be clear, the glory and honor that we had given to idols, in other words, is now put away, and we're bringing the glory and honor due the Lord's name into his presence.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's one interpretation. Okay.
And I mean, he picks up here the language of Isaiah. But I think it's more likely that he's saying everything that is beautiful and wonderful about this present world is brought into the next. Everything. So I'll tell you a little story that I related to my daughter when she was 5 years old, which I think relates to this verse. She asked me when she was 5 or 6, she said, we had a dog named Scamper. And she said, Dad, will Scamper be in heaven with me? And I said, Anna, do you need Scamper to be in heaven with you to be happy? And she said, Dad, I need him. I need him really badly. And then I said, then he'll be there. And I wasn't speaking literally, right? Although Greg Beals thinks dogs, do you know this about Greg? He argues our dogs are literally being. I'm not sure.
I'm in that camp. Luther said that too.
That's not the purpose of this podcast. I'm not sure about that, but whatever. My understanding is whether literally Scamper will be there. I think what this text is saying, everything that we've loved in this world, I think that's important to us because we think of the new creation and we think, well, are we going to be missing something? You know, people, there won't be marriage. Oh, wow, it's not going to be so great. And I think he's saying, No, everything you love in this world will be there in the new creation again, in an elevated, transcendent, really beyond our comprehension now way. That nothing will be lost. Because this world now has glory in it and a resplendent beauty, and we can look at it and think at times, oh, maybe I'm going to lose that, right? And I think the way I interpret this, John, is saying, no, you're not. It's going to be even better. I'm thinking of this because I preached yesterday and I brought in Isaiah 56. What does he say to the eunuchs? I'm going to give you something better than sons and daughters, better than a legacy. And that is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. You're not going to get maybe what you wanted in this life, but I'm going to give you something better. Something more than you'd ever imagine. And that's how I understand this verse. Well, maybe my reading of this verse is the minority view, so maybe I'm wrong on that. So,
what does your view also entail the cultural and technological creations of humanity, like the good things we have made?
Yeah, the creativity. Yeah, all that's what I mean. Not just the physical creation, but all that it means to be human, all that is good. The creativity.
Well, that would mean
Yeah.
That would mean that it's the historic and future cultural developments, everything that is good, true, and beautiful, nothing that is sinful, selfish, and destructive, but everything that is good, true, and beautiful from humanity helps to build that city. That city is co-built by God and humanity.
Even right now, our good work, elevated, transformed some way, in which we're not sure, is cultural product that
Forever.
will be brought in, transformed, elevated. So there's a mattering, there's a meaning potential to what we are doing with the work of our hands now. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's what it sounds like, because it's from the kings of the earth.
And Paul says, in terms of our work, he says to the saints a number of times, right? You're our glory and our joy, Well, first of all, that has to mean we know each other, right? And that yes, we find joy in God, but also what we've done in this world, what Paul did in this world, and clearly what we do in this world for God's name and God's glory and God's sake, that is something we're going to rejoice in. And probably now, if we saw it too clearly now, we'd become prideful and boastful. So, but it is there. There's the good work. Yeah, the good work we've done. Nothing. We say that, but I think it's really true. Nothing is forgotten. Every hidden act of faith, it has eternal consequences.
Yeah, he says that at the end of the resurrection chapter, right? That's powerful, because Christ is raised and a new creation has already begun, right? Everything you do in this new creation will carry on, that is in Christ's name, right? Everything is done in Christ, will carry on in some kind of meaning and significance. You're right. We don't know how. The Lord only knows how. We can trust that he knows what is right and true, and will fulfill his promises, will carry on into the capital N new creation, right? This new world. I wonder if that's in part what John means in 21:7. He who conquers shall have this heritage. I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Because the image of the Son of God, right, in the Old Testament means a royal figure. That's Adam. That's the collective Israel in Exodus 4. That's David. As to say the cultural mandate to fill and subdue the earth, tame those, as you mentioned, tsunamis, will finally be happening, because the new man, the new Adam, Christ, has finally brought the first creation to its telos, a Genesis 1:28, controlled and conquered world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's helpful. That whole theme of the Son that runs through the Scripture. Yeah.
Let's get to know you a little bit more. I mentioned all your writings earlier, but additionally, and perhaps primarily, we should note that you are the Associate Dean and New Testament Professor at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and a member of Clifton Baptist Church, the Clifton Baptist Church, perhaps. How do you particularly serve at Clifton Baptist?
Well, we started a church plant, but I was the preaching pastor from 1998 through 2015. And now, since then, except for a 1-year sabbatical, I serve as a lay elder at the church. So, yeah, I'm not on staff anymore, but I'm an elder. And yeah, it's been one of the greatest joys of my life being at Clifton and being involved at the church. I would say, I think the best thing for me as a seminary professor has been to be vitally involved in my local church.
You feel like that's brought something not just to the church because you have all this knowledge to share with the people of God, but also brought something back to the classroom?
Exactly. It helps me. Why am I here? To shape and form pastors, missionaries, educators, worship leaders, counselors. And so we always have to keep that in mind. We want to do the best academic work possible, but we have to remember the fundamental purpose of the seminary. And I think excellent academic work is part of that. And some professors, are going to write on Greek and Hebrew grammar. And that's maybe not going to feel immediately relevant, but it is going to be relevant ultimately. So even the most technical work, I don't do that kind of technical work, but we need professors who do. That's very helpful. So I don't want to dismiss at all the need to do technical scholarly work. But I think our eye needs to always be on the local church and that we're equipping people for ministry. Otherwise, I don't think we should even exist as a separate entity.
Yeah.
Amen.
What classes do you find yourself teaching most often at Southern?
Well, we have 6 New Testament professors. So, I'd love to teach more broadly, but with 6 of us, we tend to, teach in our specialty, what we've especially studied. So I always teach our survey, Acts through Revelation. I teach that constantly. I've taught New Testament theology much over the years. And I've taught Greek syntax, but not so much lately. So I only taught beginning Greek once. I don't love teaching beginning Greek. I mean, after you know Greek well, it's great for the students, but it's a little boring for the professor. But we have Rob Plummer to do that. He loves doing that. And then mainly I teach exegesis classes. So it's usually on what I've been working on. So, I taught recently Revelation. I teach Romans regularly, Hebrews, Ephesians. I just finished a commentary on Ephesians. It should be coming out soon. For 2 Peter and Jude. What else have I worked on? 1 Corinthians. So mainly Greek exegesis classes. Right now, I have a Greek exegesis class on campus on Romans, and I'm thrilled. I have 45 students in there.
Wow.
That's wonderful. It's almost too big, but I'm thrilled that many students want it. I'm making them translate the whole book, So they're working hard.
As you think about all these classes and what you said before about the bigger purpose of the seminary for training practitioners of the gospel, obviously one of your goals in class is to convey content, to deliver knowledge and equip them with skills. But in addition to that, what do you hope to particularly communicate to students in their own personal lives and in their ministry philosophy for longevity in ministry?
Yeah. Well, part of what I do is I don't concentrate on this, but I do apply the text to the students' lives. and I apply it to the life of the church. I don't only talk about academia. So, and I think that's one of the strengths of Southern. We have so many professors who are involved in ministry, pastoring. You think of Jim Hamilton, who's pastoring a church, Herschel York for so many years. But I could just keep going on and on. Jonathan Pennington's regularly preaching. So I think if you're doing that, it's going to come out of you as a teacher, right? You're going to be shaping the students intellectually, theologically, exegetically, but we're also shaping our students. We're trying to form our students as churchmen and churchwomen. We have both, right? And we're not going to segregate the two as if all we're doing is academics. I think that's a bad model. We're not. John Piper was my pastor for 11 years, and John would say a good seminary teacher isn't only imparting information. That's not the way we ought to teach. We also recognize we're playing a role in our students becoming like Jesus and being involved in the life of the church. So we need to apply the text some. And if we're not doing that, I think that's a deficient educational model. And I'm not talking about something dramatic. It's what we do in preaching, right? We do explaining, but also some applying. Obviously, we're not going to do as much applying as we do usually when we're preaching. But we need to do some.
Yeah. And your application is particularly not just their lives generally, but as they think about being pastors, as they think about leading the people of God, or missionaries or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And to apply it to their individual lives too. If I'm doing an exegesis passage on 1 Thessalonians 4:3-8 on sexual purity, we know what a great problem that is in our culture. Our students aren't exempt. I talk about, not long, but I say, look, if you're struggling with pornography, you need to conquer that. You need to become accountable to someone and I always say, don't pick someone who's struggling like you are, pick someone who's conquering it, who's stronger than you, that you're accountable to. So, I'll just say something like that. I don't linger on it, but I don't want to just leave it as, well, we've just exegeted this text, right?
Right.
We need to talk about what difference it makes.
Well, I would say thank you for your ministry over these years. I remember I first read your chapter in Still Sovereign over 20 years ago. I also took a class on Romans at RTS where we used John Murray, but also not John Murray, I'm sorry, Cranfield,
Oh, yeah.
and your commentary. And so I've benefited from your scholarship over the years. And even though I haven't studied at Southern, nonetheless, there are many Southern graduates around central Indiana serving faithfully in local churches. And when that happens, the fruitfulness of the entire kingdom of God goes up. So thank you for your ministry on both of those fronts over the years. I have one more question about new creation. Do you want to get some in as well here at the end?
Go ahead. I depending on how long we go.
Okay.
I'm curious about the connection between Ezekiel and Revelation.
Let's go there.
22.
Let's do that. Ask your question.
Ezekiel, the major section at the end, last 8 chapters of Ezekiel. Obviously, you have this prophetic vision of a new temple, and there's a lot of interconnected language and concepts. I'm curious how you think we are to think about the relationship between those last 8 chapters of Ezekiel and the last 2 chapters of Revelation.
Yeah. So Ezekiel 40-48, my former colleague for a number of years, Dan Block, right, wrote a 2-volume commentary on Ezekiel, which is about half of what he actually wrote, amazingly. So, Dan argues, first we're looking at the historical meaning of Ezekiel 40-48. Dan argues that Ezekiel himself did not envision the building of a literal temple. I think that's interesting. I think So it's interesting to see. Yeah, there's all kinds of allusions to Ezekiel 40 through 48 in chapters 21 and 22. And as I mentioned before, John specifically says there's not a temple. So that confirms, right, that those chapters in Ezekiel should not be understood to predict the building of a future temple. Many people, especially in the dispensational tradition, have read Ezekiel 40 through 48 as being fulfilled in the millennium. However, it's so fascinating to me that that you don't have the allusions to Ezekiel 40 through 48 in chapter 20. They're in chapters 21 and 22, the chapters where John says there's no temple.
Creation. Interesting.
So I think that functions as our hermeneutical key. How does John actually appropriate Ezekiel? Now, I think you can go to what Dan says. Look, hey, even in Ezekiel, there's not an intention to build a literal temple, but that may be disputed. But what can't be disputed is John appropriates it in chapters, so many allusions to Ezekiel 40 through 48, in 2 chapters where he says there is no temple. So I want to say, along with Greg Beale and many others, we may disagree on details, how to interpret things, but the New Testament appropriation of the Old Testament should serve as our hermeneutical guide and lodestar.
Yeah.
This is how these chapters are appropriated. And we saw it with the river. And of course, how does Ezekiel end, right? The Lord is there. The Lord is there in the new creation, the new temple. So, and actually, I think that's so exciting, right? To read the Old Testament, and we read Ezekiel 40 through 48, and I think we all say, what in the world's going on here? And then the New Testament helps us, right? Oh, okay. This gives me a pathway, a key to help understand what's going on there. So that we always want to pay attention hermeneutically. We want to hear the per se voice, that historical voice of the Old Testament, of course. So we want to hear that voice, but we also always have to hear how it's appropriated in the New Testament.
So earlier we talked about symbols and reference. If it's not a literal physical building to which Ezekiel himself is pointing, and not the way it seems John is appropriating that language, rather he's talking about the whole universe, not just a localized building. What then is the referent for Ezekiel 40 to 48? Is it only, oh, God is there? It seems like a lot of words just to say God is there. Or is there more to Ezekiel 40 to 48 in the appropriation by John in Revelation that is the truth being referred to?
Yeah, I think when in Ezekiel, well, I'm not an expert on Ezekiel 40 through 48, but I would say, what is Ezekiel saying? He's saying the land of Israel, right? Even the dimensions of the land that he gives are very surreal. The land of Israel is going to become the holy place and the temple itself where Yahweh dwells. And that, what Revelations is saying is, and I think that's implicit even in Ezekiel, because of the promise of Abraham, all nations will be blessed, the whole world will be blessed. Blow that up, so to speak. It's an anticipation what's happening in Israel. It's an anticipation what's going to happen to the whole universe, right? The whole universe is going to be where Yahweh dwells. So I think it fits. The Lord is there. He's there in Israel, but Israel becomes a microcosm of the whole world, so to speak. And isn't that the story of the Old Testament? The blessing given to Abraham is finally universal. And I think we see that even in Ezekiel 36, 37, 38, and 39, right? At the end of the day, Gog and Magog don't win. You know, it's the people of God, and in a sense they take over the whole world. So what's said about that land, that place, is universalized, and it's again what we talked about at the beginning. What's the blessing? the presence of Yahweh, presence of God. We will see his face.
Yeah. So that universalization is not, invented by Matthew 28 or Paul and his missionary vision, but is baked right into the Old Testament, particularly the prophetic vision for the Messianic age.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating? Romans 4:13. He says, what does he say about Abraham? He's the heir of the world.
World.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, you
fascinating.
could say, wait,
Cosmos.
Paul, wait, it's not the world, it's the land of Canaan. But that universal blessing that's given to Abraham also means it's not just the land of Israel at the end of the day. And of course, we have a lot of the ends of the earth language, and Psalm 2, Psalm 72, many other places in the prophets. So.
Yeah, with one stroke of the pen, Paul does a lot of biblical theological work, right, for us as readers.
Yeah, and in Hebrews 11, it says Abraham was seeking a city whose builder and maker was God the whole time, right?
Yeah.
This New Jerusalem picture.
Yeah, which of course, which fits so beautifully, right, with Revelation 21 and 22.
Right.
And Paul says, right, Galatians 4:26, it's the heavenly Jerusalem. So there are all kinds of connections here.
Yeah. Fascinating. Roger, got some more?
No, good.
Okay. So here's my last question. What is the significance for Christian theology and ministry that the Bible ends this way? That it ends with new creation. I mean, what does that do for us? What does it pull together in the larger scheme of things?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a huge question. I would say, I want to start with the book of Revelation itself. Here, believers, they're being persecuted, they're being discriminated against. But if we look at chapters 2 and 3, what's going on? Conflict without, compromise within. When the conflict is fierce without, what happens, at least what's the temptation? Most of the churches are failing, right? 5 of the 7 churches are not doing well. And if you take the church of Thyatira in the middle, the longest, description of any church. So the church, all through history, is tempted because of conflict without to compromise within. And the picture of the new creation fundamentally functions as a call for the church to continue to trust and believe and to endure. And here's the reward that's coming. We have to know when we're being oppressed and mistreated and there's a temptation to compromise with the world. We have to know that finally we triumph. So finally evil doesn't win. So I think John is painting for us a picture. Evil is incredibly powerful. Evil, it is so powerful that we begin to wonder, is it the final reality? Is the final reality of this world despair and discouragement? No, John tells us. Finally, through the cross, right? The cross is just woven through this book. Through the cross and the resurrection of Jesus, we triumph. So hope is so fundamental. If we don't have hope, we will compromise at the end of the day. So I think what's the storyline of the Bible? At the end of the day, it's God's sovereign, God triumphs, but not just that, goodness wins. The longer you live, I've lived a long time now, there's so much wrong with the world. You begin to look at the world and think, this place is a mess. And it can begin to depress and discourage us. And we can begin to believe it will not all be well. But Revelation says it will be well. It will be well. But which side are you going to be on at the end of the day? I think John is saying, that vision in 14:9-11 or statement of final punishment, they'll be tormented forever and ever. There's no rest. Why does John give that? The very next thing he says, hang on, because you don't want to go there. evil will be destroyed. It really is going to happen. So, that's sort of, it's creation fall, right? Redemption, but it's already not yet, though there is a consummation coming. We have to know there is a consummation coming, because I don't know, Nick and Roger, how you interpret, and a lot of people disagree with me here on the parable of the leaven and the mustard seed, but I would argue that we're still a mustard seed. So when people look at the world, so I agree with George Ladd. When it becomes a tree is in the new creation. So now people look at the world and they think, is the church the answer? Christians, we're still a minority, but the answer of Revelation is the tree's coming. The tree's coming. Hang on. Yeah. You look at the world now and you think, well, we're the mustard seed in the world. Where's the kingdom? But ultimately we win. We triumph. And we need that. We need to know that. And honestly, I just speak pastorally. I need to know it every day. I can easily look at the world and become discouraged and think, man, am I doing any good in this world? Yeah, we are.
Each of these.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to comment that each of these letters to the churches ends with, "To him who conquers, I will grant," and then there's some image of Revelation 21 and 22, right? Grant, eat from the tree of life, or not taste the second death, or drink from the water. And so him who conquers will see that reward. And then in the end, in chapter 21:7, he says, he who conquers, this is the one who becomes the Son of God. And we do that because in chapter 5, Jesus conquered, right? He conquered by his death and his resurrection, not by fighting per se, like we normally think of as conquering, destroy our enemy. No, it's actually by holding on to your testimony and being faithful and matching the life of the Messiah, who himself conquered by his own sacrifice, then resurrection. And I think that's an encouraging image to keep going, as you said.
I love that. One of the links you made there, because yes, again and again, he tells us in the letters and a couple other places, you must conquer. But we conquer because, as you pointed out, because he conquered. His conquering is the ultimate conquering. Our conquering is dependent on his conquering. Yeah. And yes, the image, the promises at the end of each of the letters, it's fast. This book is, I love Revelation. Because I think it has such a message for the church today. That's what really excites me about the book. I'm not into prophecy as just like some kind of abstract, isn't this fascinating theologically? It is fascinating.
This is that. Connect the dots, check the box. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'd like to do for our listeners. If you're still with us here this late in the show, I hope you are. There'll be a link in the show notes below. Leave a comment, and your name will be entered into a drawing, and we will send you a copy of Dr. Schreiner's new commentary on Revelation, and you can read all about it, all 800 pages as you need. Dr. Schreiner, again, we're grateful for joining us on World Upside Down, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, brother.